Tuesday, April 2. The Unexpected. Question. Read Job chapter 1, verses 13 to 19 and chapter 2, verses 7 to 9. What happened to Job? In what ways does his experience reflect what happens to everyone in one way or another, or at one time or another? Job 1, beginning at verse 13. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And a messenger came to Job and said, The oxen were ploughing and the donkeys feeding beside them, when the Sabaeans raided them and took them away. Indeed, they have killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, The Chaldeans formed 3 bands, raided the camels and took them away, yes, and killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they are dead, and I alone have escaped to tell you. And Job 2, beginning at verse 7, So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with painful boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took for himself a potsherd with which to scrape himself while he sat in the midst of the ashes. Then his wife said to him, Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus declared that there is nothing permanent except change. Just when it seems that everything is going fine, the unexpected happens. It may be the loss of a job or a limb, an illness that sends us to bed or to an early death, a house fire, a car accident, a fall while walking the family pet. Of course, not all changes have to be negative. Maybe a promotion at work leads to better economic conditions. Or perhaps you meet someone who will become your spouse, a change that many would welcome. Either way, we can be going along even in a routine, a rhythm, when instantly and unexpectedly it's all disrupted. Job was certainly not expecting the new season in his life. The Bible describes him as a man who was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. Job 1 verse 1. Also, we know that he was married, had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and was very wealthy, as we read in Job 1 verses 2 and 3, and 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. Also his possessions were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large household, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. By the time we reach the middle of the book, he has suffered at least 6 major losses: his property, his labour force, his children, his health, the support of his wife, and the encouragement of his friends. His world has been turned upside down and his family life devastated. Though what happened to Job was quite extreme, who among us hasn't experienced the unexpected in a very negative way too? Life can be going along just fine when suddenly and without warning everything completely changes, and our lives and our families' lives might never be the same again. This is nothing new. Abel probably didn't expect to be murdered, and Joseph didn't exactly expect to be sold into slavery in Egypt. In both stories, family members were the betrayers, and in both stories, the families were greatly impacted by what happened to the other members. Scripture is full of examples of people whose lives and families were greatly transformed by the unexpected. And so to finish today, how has your faith helped you amid the trials that unexpectedly interrupted the rhythms of your life? You have been listening to a reading of the Adult Sabbath School Bible Study Guide by Dr. Percy Harold from Queensland, Australia. This service is brought to you by Hope Channel, the Sabbath School Department, and Christian Services for the Blind. Remember, God is always faithful.